Good evening po sa ating lahat at pag-uusapan natin sa gabing ito ang 2 Samuel. So bakit natin pag-aaralan ang mga books sa Old Testament? Siyempre para maunawaan po natin kung ano ang nilalaman at ano ang mga katuruan ng ating Panginoon para sa kanyang piniling bayan, ang bayang Israel. Kaya kung mapapansin nyo, more on Israel ang ating pinag-uusapan. More on nakafocus doon kung papaano nag-work ang Panginoon sa bayang Israel at nalalaman natin na noon before nagkaroon ng king ang bayang Israel, ang Panginoon yung naghahari sa kanila. Pero mga Israelites ay ni-reject nila ang pamumuno ng ating Panginoon at sila'y pumili. Pumili ng king kapalit ng ating Panginoon at yun nga, si King Saul ang kanilang napili at sa kanilang paningin, ito yung nararapat para sa kanila. Sa kanilang paningin, mayroon na silang tagapagligtas, defender, deliverer, at protector. May malalapitan na silang tao. Kaya dahil pinili ng tao, ang tao yung naglagay ng standard, pero hindi naman standard ng Panginoon. So ano ang nangyari? Nireject lang din ng Panginoon yung pinili ng tao. Kaya si King Saul habang naghahari, siya ay rejected ng ating Panginoon. Kaya habang nasa position siya, ang Panginoon ay mayroon na siyang inanuwent or pinili na king para pumalit sa kanyang trono. So, ganun ang nangyayari. So, bakit natin pag-aralan? Si Apostol Pablo, mayroon siyang sinabi dito sa Romans 15, verse 4. Romans 15, verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. So, aralin natin ang mga books under the Old Testament purposely for our learning. For our learning. Hindi for application, hindi for obedience, dahil ang sulat ay hindi naka-address para sa church, the body of Christ. So hindi rin for application dahil wala doon ang instruction ng mga believers sa panahon natin ngayon. So ang sinabi lang for learning. Mayroon pang verse na pwede nating idagdag sa 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 6. Now these things were our examples, so the intent we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. Then verse 11, now all these things happen unto them for examples, and they are written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the world are come. So ulitin ko, yung mga naisulat under the Time Past program ay naisulat for our learning purposes, dahil mayroon pong naisulat para sa atin under the But Now program, na ang sulat ay intended for us to apply at aralin. Ano ba yung mga katuruan or instruction para sa atin? At mayroon din mga writings para sa ages to come. Kaya ang goal natin, bakit natin aralin ang buong Biblia, para mayroon po tayong kaalaman kung ano ang mga katuruan under the Time Past, katuruan under the But Now, at mga katuruan under ages to come. Kaya nga sinabi sa 2 Timothy 2:15, rightly dividing the word of truth. Rightly dividing the word of truth. Bakit kailangan natin i-rightly divide? Para hindi mahihalo ang mga katuruan under sa Time Past, But Now, and ages to come. Maraming katuruan under the Time Past na sasabihin ng karamihan, maganda naman ang katuruan doon, hindi ba natin pwedeng gawin? Ang ganda naman yung mga pangako ng Panginoon noon, hindi ba pwede natin gawin? Tama. Maganda na katuruan or pangako ng Panginoon para sa kanyang pinili. At sino ba yung pinili niya that time? Ang mga Israelites. Sila yung chosen nation. Sila yung nation na kung saan ang Panginoon ay nakipagtipan. Ang Panginoon ay nagbigay ng covenant sa bayang Israel. Hindi po kasama ang mga Hintel nung nakipagtipan ang Panginoon sa bayang Israel. Kaya kahit maganda ang sinasabi ng Panginoon, pangako ng Panginoon, sa time na yon, hindi pa rin natin pwedeng i-claim, hindi natin pwedeng angkinin, kahit maganda ang pangako, maganda ang plano, dahil nga mayroon pong pinangakuhan at hindi po tayo na mga Hintel ang pinangakuhan during the Time Past program. Kaya nga ang Panginoon dumating ay nakafocus lang sa bayang Israel. Ang Panginoon nung siya'y dumating ay fulfillment sa sinabi ng mga propeta. Siya ay isang katuparan kung ano yung prophecy patungkol sa paghahari. Tandaan po natin ang pinangakuhan na mayroong maghahari kapalit doon sa trono ni David ay ang Panginoong Hesus at maghahari sa bayang Israel. Yan po ay propesiya. Kaya nung ipinanganak ang Panginoong Hesus, siya'y agad na recognize ng Magi. Hinahanap nila na saan yung hari ng mga Hudyo. In Matthew chapter 2 verse 2, now are saying, where is he that is the born King of the Jews? Na-recognize siya yung hari ng mga Hudyo. At siya din ay ipinanganak bilang tagapagligtas ng kanyang bayang Israel. So si Jesus Christ ay ipinanganak para iligtas ang bayang Israel. Dahil ang Israel ay hinahalintulad sila sa isang tupang ligaw or the loose sheep. Kaya sa Matthew 15:24, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Sinong nagsabi doon? Si Jesus Christ. Nung siya'y nilapitan ng isang hintel, nagmakaawa, nag-request ng tulong, ang sagot ng Panginoon, ako'y ipinadala lamang sa sambahayan ng Israel. At nung pumili siya ng mga apostol, kanyang inutusan, huwag kayong pumunta sa mga hintel. Ang pupuntahan nyo ay ang bayang Israel. Sabi niya sa Matthew 10:5-6, this 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So very clear yung mandate ng ating Panginoon during His earthly ministry. He was commissioned the 12 apostles to go not into the way of the Gentiles, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So, more on Israel, nung dumating si Jesus Christ, ang concern Israel. Nung pumili siya ng mga 12 apostol, ang concern Israel. Ito po yung changes. Nung ang Panginoon tinawag niya si Apostol Pablo ay isinugo para sa mga hintel. So, nagkaroon lang ng changes nung tinawag si Pablo bilang apostol ng mga hintel. Kaya dun sa Romans 11:13, itong sabi ni Apostol Pablo, for I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles. Dito lang po sa time ni Apostol Pablo na kung saan tayong lahat ay nagiging bahagi sa programa kung paniniwalaan ang mensahe ng grace. The gospel of the grace of God. But before Apostle Paul, ang concern, ang pinaka-primary focus sa ministry nila, ministry ng mga apostle, ministry ng ating Panginoon, backward kay John the Baptist, backward doon sa mga propeta, ay ang Israel. So, kailangan makita natin malaman natin yung sequence. Kaya nga pinag-uusapan natin sa mga books, mga naunang books na pinag-uusapan natin, Exodus, Numbers, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Ruth, Judges, 1 Samuel. Ano pong napansin nyo? Israel lagi yung pinag-uusapan. Kaya mayroong mga nagtatanong, pwede ba nating i-apply yung mga sinasabi doon, dalhin dito sa panahon natin under grace? Hindi pwede. Magiging out of the context. Kaya nga mayroong isang exegetical interpretation, hermeneutical interpretation na tinatawag out of the context. Bakit sinasabing out of the context? Dahil wala doon sa konteksto mo, wala doon sa context natin, kumukuha tayo ng mga bagay na wala doon sa ating context. We are under grace. Ang context natin ay under grace. Ngayon, paano kung kumuha ka ng mga katuruan na gusto mong i-apply na nandoon sa Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? Ang tawag doon, out of the context. Bakit po? Hindi yun time natin. Time ng mga apostol, time ng ating Panginoon na ang kanilang pinaka-focus sa kanilang ministry ay ang mga Israelites. Mayroong mga katuruan ang Panginoon para sa kanila at yun ay kukunin natin, ang tawag doon, out of the context. Ano ba ang context natin? Ang context natin ay ang matatagpuan sa Romans to Philemon. Ito'y isinulat ng apostol natin na si Apostol Pablo. Ibig sabihin, kung ang Panginoon ay nangangaral through Apostle Paul, ang instruction na ibinigay ng Panginoon kay Apostol Pablo para sa atin at kanyang isinulat. Kaya doon sa 13 epistles, doon po natin matatagpuan ang instruction para sa atin patungkol sa pamumuhay ng isang totoong mananampalataya. Doon din natin matatagpuan. Tungkol sa spiritual growth, doon natin matatagpuan din under grace. Tungkol sa justification, sanctification, nandoon. Hindi ka na pwedeng kumuha kahit saan-saan, kompleto na po. Kaya ang part natin aralin para maging maingat tayo na hindi maihahalo kung ano ang mga teaching o mga katuruan under the time past, under ages to come. Dapat maging clear sa atin na mayroong katuruan under the dispensation of grace na ito'y ibinigay ng Panginoon kay Apostol Pablo para sa atin. Kaya nga, for learning. Yung binasa natin sa Romans 15:4, for learning purposes lang. Kaya nga inaaral natin book by book para makikita natin kung ano yung pinaka-concern, pinaka-focus ng ating Panginoon. Kaya sa na-mention po natin, ang pinaka-focus doon under the time pass program, Israel. Ito nga ang good news sa panahon natin ngayon, after Acts 28, that the salvation of God is sent unto the Gentiles. Sa ngayon po, ang kaligtasan nasa mga Hintel. Gusto kong basahin lang natin saglit ng Acts 28:28. But known, therefore unto you that the salvation of God is sent unto the Gentiles, and that they will hear it. Noon, ang kaligtasan nasa Israel, nasa mga Hudyo ang kaligtasan. Pero yung inayawan ng mga Israelites, yung offer, ang kaligtasan ay napunta sa atin. Salvation is sent unto the Gentiles. But before, ang kaligtasan ay nasa mga Hudyo. John 4:22. You worship, you know, not what we know, what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Ang kaligtasan po noon nasa kanila. Nung tinanggihan nila yung offer ng Panginoon, ang kaligtasan nasa atin ngayon. That the salvation of God is sent unto the Gentiles. At ganun din sa Romans 11:11, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. Kailangan po maging malinaw sa atin kung bakit kailangan natin aralin ang Bible rightly divided para hindi tayo basta-bastang pumunta sa ibang programa at kumuha tayo ng mga katuruan dalhin sa panahon ngayon. Kaya mayroong tinatawag boundaries. May mga boundary. Kailangan alam natin ang boundary para hindi po tayo mag-overlap. Kaya mayroong mixing teaching. Bakit po nagkaroon ng mayroong mixing teaching? Kasi nga, hindi nila nakita na lumagpas na sila sa boundary. Kumukuha na sila ng mga bagay, mga magagandang katuruan na hindi ni-required sa panahon natin ngayon. So, kailangan aralin ang Bible rightly divided. At alamin natin kung ano ang mga katuruan noon para sa Israel. Kaya pinag-aaralan natin ang Biblia book by book para magkaroon tayo ng idea bawat book. Kaya ngayon po, nandito tayo sa 2 Samuel. Katulad ng binanggit po natin, Israel na naman ang pag-uusapan natin. Kaya yung iba baka yung lagi na lang Israel. O yung iba, ayaw nang mag-aral, Israel na naman yung nababanggit ko, Israel. Yes. Kasi nga, nandun tayo sa programa nila eh. Hindi naman pwedeng palitan natin yung pangalan nila, Gentiles, Body of Christ, na ang pinag-uusapan natin ay under the time past. Ang Body of Christ po ay na-mention lang po ang Church, the Body of Christ, mention only sa epistles ni Apostle Paul. Doon lang po na-mention ang Church, the Body of Christ. Salvation by grace, mention only sa writings ni Apostle Paul. Nandun tayo sa Time Pass program, expected po na Israel lagi ang maririnig nyo sa ating presentation dahil yun ang programa. Okay? So, 2 Samuel. Ang 2 Samuel, actually, ito po ay na-divide ng 6 na division by chapter. So, sa chapters 1 to 4, ang pinag-uusapan dito, the reigning in Hebron, ito ay patungkol pa rin sa time ni King David's triumphs. Actually, yung David's triumphs ay start from chapter 1 to chapter 10. Pero itong chapter 1 to chapter 10 ay na-divide into 2. Yung first part, chapters 1 to 4, the reigning in Hebron over Judah. So, David's lament in chapter 1, and then David's crowning in chapter 2, and David's increase in chapter 3 to 4. Then, pagdating sa chapter 5 to 10, reigning in Jerusalem. So, kumbaga, lumawak ang teritoryo ni David. Yan, reigning sa Hebron over Judea, and then reigning in Jerusalem over all Israel. In chapter 5, a new capital. In chapter 6, a new worship center. In chapter 7, a new dynasty. Chapter 8, a new boundary. Chapter 9, a new sun. Chapter 10, another new boundary. Ngayon, pagdating sa chapters 11 to 20, so ito ay siyempre na-divide din, pero sa time pa rin ni David. Pero ito naman ang issue. Sa first part ay David's triumph, pero sa part na ito, David's trouble. David's troubles. So, ganun naman ang scenario. So, trouble with himself. In chapter 11, David's sin. And in chapter 12, Nathan's denunciation. And then David's troubles with his family. Okay, in chapter 13, Amnon's immorality. And then chapter 14, Absalom's crime and flight. In chapter 15, Absalom's revolt. Chapter 16-17, Absalom's counselors. And chapter 18, Absalom's death. So 13:18, David's troubles with his family. Then another trouble in chapters 19 to 20, David's troubles with his nation. In chapter 19, David's return, and chapter 20, Sheba's revolt. Then sa 21 to 24 naman, here miscellaneous narratives. Chapter 21, a famine. Chapter 22, a song. Chapter 23, a prophecy. And chapter 24, failure. Kaya ang theme ng book of 2 Samuel regarding blessings or consequences follow every action. So ganun po yung division ng 2 Samuel, at pwede nyo pong aralin yan, pwede nyo pong alamin pa ang 2 Samuel. So 2 Samuel, actually it talks about David's reign and expansion of the nation. So sa paghahari ni David ay lumawak ang territory. Kumbaga yung kanyang nasasakupan ay lumawak during his time. At ito din yung time na ang Jerusalem ang nagiging headquarter, nagiging sentro nung siya naghahari. Ang Jerusalem ang pinaka-headquarter, at doon din ni-request na bagong place or lugar ng worship doon din sa Jerusalem. So, when we talk about the author, mostly pinaniniwalaan ay si Samuel, and then regarding date of writing in 1930 BC and later. So how about the theme and purpose of this book? With no real break in the story of Israel's kingdom, 2 Samuel continues the narrative of the beginning of Israel's kingdom, beginning with Saul's death and continuing with the reign of David. So tandaan po natin from yung time ni Samuel, kasi si Samuel yung last judge, and then ang Israelites ay nag-request na sila ng panibago, yung sila mismo ang mamili. Ayan, kaya si King Saul ang kanilang napili. Yan yung time ng monarchy. Time ng monarchy, or ang na-establish ang monarchy during the time of King Saul. But before King Saul, ang form of government ay theocracy. So the form of government was theocracy before King Saul. Pero nung ang tao ay pumili na ng king, ay from theocracy to democracy. Run by people, run by man. Ayan po yung monarchy. So from theocracy to monarchy, from judges to kingship. So it is distinctively about the 40-year reign of David in 2 Samuel chapter 5, 4-5. Ilang taon po siya naghari? 40 years. And traces his reign through his triumphs and tragedies, which include his sins of adultery, murder, and their consequences on his family and the nation. Ang nangyari po doon sa kasalanan ni David, sa adultery and yung kanyang pagpatay doon sa isang pinagkatiwalaan niyang soldier na si Uriah, ang kanyang pamilya ay nag-suffer ng consequences. Nagkaroon ng gulo. Yung kanyang mga anak ay hindi nagkakasundo. Hindi nagkaroon ng pagkakaisa after nung siya'y nagkasala. And then affected doon ang bansang Israel. So, start sa kanya, nagkaroon siya ng struggle sa kanyang sarili dahil sa kanyang kasalanan. Then, naapektuhan yung kanyang family dahil doon sa consequences. And then, yung nation, yung bayang Israel, apektado. So, nag-start lang yun sa adultery. Yun lang. Adultery, nag-multiply from adultery to murder. And then, problems happen. From himself, sa kanya, and then family, and then the nation. The theme, as 2 Samuel recounts David's reign, could be summarized as how sin turns triumphs into troubles. Ayan. Sin turns triumphs into troubles. So whereas the kingdom was established under Saul. Yes. The kingdom was established under Saul. It is expanded by David. During the time of King Saul, the kingdom was not yung kingdom na yon ay hindi siya nag-expand, kumbaga. Kailan nag-expand or lumawak? During the time of David. Ayan. During the time of David, doon lang lumawak ang kanyang territory. Pero during the time of King Saul, hindi po. Hindi po. Kasi si King Saul ay hindi siya talaga warrior. Itong si King Saul. Kaya nga pag may war, nandun lang siya sa kanyang hideout. Nagtatago lang. Dapat siya yung isa sa mga frontliner pag may mga labanan, pero itong si King Saul ay hindi. Siya ay nagtatago, pinabayaan na lang yung mga soldiers na mahumarap. Kaya kung paralyzed yung king, paralyzed na rin lahat ng soldiers. So ganon ang nangyayari kay King Saul, kaya hindi lumawak ang territory. So during the time of David. So Saul's kingdom gave stabilization to Israel from the time of the judges. But David's reign brought growth or expansion. So in the typical fashions of the Bible, which candidly tells the story of its leaders with words such as 2 Samuel portrays the good, the bad, and the ugly of the life of King David. So, ganun po yung nagiging description sa kanya doon sa 2 Samuel. So, siya ay good, siya din ay bad, ugly. Yung kanyang pamumuhay bilang hari. How about the keywords? Since the name of David occurs some 267 times, his name clearly becomes the key word. So, ang pangalan niya, na-mention 267, so, yan ay napili ng mga Bible scholar na yun ang keyword. Yung mismong pangalan niya, David. So, kung pag-usapan naman natin ang mga key verses, marami po. At isa na dito sa chapter 7, 12 to 16, when your days are complete and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your descendant after you, who will come forth from you, and I will establish His kingdom. So ito ay isang prophetic prophetic words na ito naman ay mangyayari pagdating ng Panginoon bilang Son of David. Ayan. So ito ay prophetic na referring to the Lord Jesus Christ. In verse 13, He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of His kingdom forever. So, kailan ma-establish ang kingdom na ito forever? Sa second coming na po. Ang fulfillment, ang katuparan ng prophecy na ito ay sa second coming ng ating Panginoon. And then sa verse 14, I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. When he commits iniquity, I will correct him with the rod of man and the strokes of the sons of men, but my loving kindness shall not depart from him, as I took it away from Saul, whom I removed from before you. Verse 16, and your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. Referring to the millennial reign, referring to the millennial kingdom, the earthly, literal, visible kingdom. Another key verses in chapter 12 to 14, indeed you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and under the sun. In verse 13, then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, the Lord also has taken away your sin. You shall not die. However, in verse 14, because by this deed you have given occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, so the child also that is born to you shall surely die. So yung kanyang anak ang kapalit or nag-suffer or namatay yung kanyang anak. At ano ang dahilan, cause? Yung kasalanan pa rin niya. Okay, yung kasalanan niya. So let us consider this as key chapters, chapter 5 and chapter 11 to 12, the book of 2 Samuel. So chapter 5 is a key chapter in that it records David's reign as king over all Israel, but chapters 11 to 12 are perhaps the more pivotal chapters in that day. Record David's sin with Bathsheba and her husband Uriah, his rebuke by Nathan the prophet, and the discipline that came on David's house as a result. Then pwede rin nating i-consider, aside from David as a key people, si Nathan, Bathsheba, Absalom, Joab, Amnon, and Ahithophel. Ayan ay consider din as key person or key people dito po sa book of 2 Samuel. Christ has sinned in 2 Samuel with the exception of his sins. David remains a type of Christ as the King of Israel. It is in this chapter that God established that Davidic covenant, which ultimately has its fulfillment in the person of Christ. So mayroon pong tinatawag Davidic covenant, at ang culmination ng Davidic covenant sa second coming na po ng ating Panginoon. Doon po ang culmination. So David was a type of Christ with the exception of his sin. Pwede rin natin i-consider ito bilang outline, guide ng pag-aaral. 2 Samuel naturally falls into three sections: the triumphs of David, chapters 1 to 10, and then the transgressions of David, chapter 11, and then the troubles of David in chapter 12 to 24. First part, the triumphs of David. So in chapter 1, verses 1 to chapter 5, verse 6, the coronation of the king. Then in chapter 5, 7 to chapter 6, verse 23, the consolidation of the kingdom. How about in chapter 7, 1 to 29, the covenant concerning the kingdom. And then chapter 8, verses 1 to 10, to chapter 10, verse 19, the conquest of the king. So yun yung unang part. Okay, yun yung unang part patungkol sa pagiging victorious ni David sa kanyang mga laban. Kaya kung babasahin yung chapters 1 to 10, mababasa nyo yung the triumphs of King David. Pero pagdating sa pangalawang part, chapter 11 verses 1 to 27, ibang senaryo na po. Bakit? Ang pinag-uusapan naman ay yung kasalanan ni David, the transgressions of the King David. Pinag-uusapan po yun sa whole chapter ng chapter 11, 2 Samuel, at ito ay na-divide into two. In chapter 11, verse 1 to 13, the adultery by the King David. Pinag-usapan nito yung kanyang kasalanan. Pagdating sa verses 14 to 27, the murder caused by the king. So nagkaroon siya ng kasalanan dahilan na siya ay naging humina ang kanyang kaharian. Pagdating sa pangatlong part, sa chapter 12 to chapter 24, ito na po, the troubles of the king, o the troubles of King David. So first, yun nga ang trouble at home, and then chapter 13, 37 to 24-25, troubles in the kingdom. Why is 2 Samuel so important? First Samuel introduced the monarchy of Israel. Diba, pinag-usapan natin kagabi, First Samuel introduces the monarchy of Israel and started the monarchy started at King Saul. Doon po nag-start ang monarchy, yung monarchy form of government run by people. So that's monarchy. Kung sinasabing theocracy form of government, run by God. So a kingdom run by God, monarchy, a kingdom run by people. So, First Samuel introduces the monarchy of Israel. How about the 2 Samuel chronicles the establishments of the Davidic dynasty? Nakita nyo yung kaibahan, yung emphasis ng 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel? The establishments of the Davidic dynasty, the expansion of Israel under God's chosen leader, no other than King David. So the book opens as David learned of Saul's death, his lament over the deaths of Saul and of Jonathan in 2 Samuel chapter 1, 19 to 27. David's unlikely best friend demonstrated David's personal grief over their demise. The Lord's Son set David over the tribe of Judah in chapter 2, verse 4, and then over all Israel as his anointed king. in chapter 5 verse 3, then uniting all 12 tribes into a tight-knit nation. Ayan. Ganun po yung naging scenario. So si David ay nagiging king siya sa tribe of Judah and then sa tribe sa overall Israel. Ayan. So ganun po ang nangyari. Kaya kung pag-usapan natin ang teritoryo ni David, napakalawak po that time kumpara sa teritoryo ni King Saul. Kumbaga si King Saul nandoon lang sa isang location, pero si David ay sinakop niya halos lahat. So lumawak ang kanyang teritoryo, kaya nga yung na-mention natin, sa kanyang panahon, sa paghahari ni David, ginawang sentro ang Jerusalem as kanyang headquarter, at yung kingdom doon niya in-establish, at yung temple doon din sa Jerusalem as their new place of worship. Doon nilipat nung si David ang nagiging king. So the first 10 chapters show David as victorious in battle, praised by the people, compassionate to the sick and poor, and righteous in God's sight. Ganun si David doon. Kung babasahin yung chapter 10, ang ganda ng description sa kanya. Talagang hinahangaan siya dahil talagang magaling, at in the sight of God siya ay righteous. And we see David dance before the Lord in the streets of Jerusalem as his men brought the Ark of the Covenant back home in chapter 6 verses 12 to 16. Ang ganda ng kumbaga yung description nung before siya nagkasala. Before siya nagkasala, ito ang nagiging description sa kanya. We also meet Mephibosheth, the crippled son of Jonathan, to whom David extended grace for the sake of his father Jonathan in chapter 9, verse 7. So mayroon siyang pangako doon kay Jonathan, kaya siya yung naging responsible doon sa anak ni Jonathan na crippled. Ayan. So he was extended his grace to this person. Dahil mayroon silang tinatawag na friendship. Na-mention yan sa chapter 2 Samuel chapter 9 verse 7. Yet biblical writers did not overlook their heroes' flaws in the chapters that follow. We know that David's adultery with Bathsheba in 2 Samuel chapter 11 verses 1 to 27. So doon nyo po mababasa yung patungkol kay David and Bathsheba. Ito din yung time na nagkasala si David at nagiging dahil sa kanyang kasalanan, affected ang buong bansang Israel. Naapektuhan. So was followed by a series of tragedies. Ganun na ang nangyari. Sa nagiging resulta, followed by a series of tragedies. Anong nangyari sa chapter 12 verse 18? Their child's death. Ayan. Ganun na po, nagiging matindi na ang mga nangyayari after nung siya'y nagkasala. So, sunod-sunod na po yung mga problema. So, their child's death in chapter 12, 18. And then sa chapter 13, 1 to 39, anong nangyari? David's daughter, Tamar's raped by his son Amnon. Then, chapter 13, 28, 30, another problem, Amnon's murder. Chapter 15, verses 1 to 37, David's own political overthrow by his son Absalom. Biro mo yun, si Absalom na nagbabalak ng masama sa kanyang ama, si David bilang king, at gusto na niyang palitan na siyang maghahari. Nakita niyo yung senaryo nung nagkasala si David? Sunod-sunod ang nagiging problema. Yan ang nagiging consequences doon sa kanyang decision. Then, in chapter 18, 1 to 33, Absalom's subsequent death. Ayan. So, despite the turmoil in his later years, David enjoyed the Lord's forgiveness and favor. His genuine sorrow and regret over his sins revealed his repentant heart with which the Lord was pleased. Kahit ganoon yung nangyari, ay humingi siya pa rin ng kapatawaran. Buong puso siyang humingi ng kapatawaran at siya'y pinatawad din ng ating Panginoon. So what's the big idea? Key to the book and to the entire biblical record is 2 Samuel 7:16. Your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. This divine promise marked the beginning of an additional covenant called the Davidic Covenant, in which God promised an eternal throne to the house of David because of David's faith. God did not treat David's descendants as he had treated Saul's. Sin would be punished, but David's line would never be completely cut off. Ayan. Kaya nung nangako ang Panginoon kay David, actually, ito'y kanyang pinaniniwalaan, and then ang fulfillment doon na kay Jesus Christ. Yun po ang fulfillment doon sa kanyang ipinangako. Nung sinabi ng Panginoon, your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Yes, ito ay tumutukoy na sa next generation, sa next generation. Kung pang ilang henerasyon ang magtupad ng pangakong ito. So ito po yung Davidic Covenant. At ulitin ko po, ito'y mangyayari pagdating ng Panginoong Hesus. God's unconditional promise to David would be fulfilled ultimately in David's descendant, Jesus Christ. So the covenant also included a continuing promise that the people of Israel would have a land of their own forever. Kaya nga ang pangako ng mga Israelites dito lang sa lupa. Ang ipinangako ng Panginoon sa mga Israelites dito lang sa lupa na sila'y manirahan forever. Kaya nga ang Panginoon ay mag-create ng new earth design para sa kanila na pinangakuhan manirahan dito sa earth forever. Number 1, David becomes king of Judah. In 2 Samuel chapter 1, verses 1 to chapter 3, verse 5. So the first major section of 2 Samuel describes how David became king over the southern tribe of Judah. David laments the deaths of Saul and Jonathan in 2 Samuel chapter 1, verses 1 to 27. David laments the death of Saul and his friend Jonathan in a poignant elegy after hearing the news from an Amalekite warrior who claims to have killed Saul. Sino pala ang pumatay kay King Saul? Isang Amalekite warrior. And David has the warrior killed for having put the Lord's anointed to death. And David anointed king of Judah in 2 Samuel chapter 2 verses 1 to 11. David reigns over Judah. David reigns over Judah, but Ishbaal, Saul's son, reigns over the other tribes. And then David defeats the house of Saul in 2 Samuel 2, 12 to chapter 3 verse 1 in a civil war between David's forces and the forces of Ishbaal. David's forces prevail, signaling the end of Saul's house and the beginning of David's rise. Kaya di ba itong si Ishbaal, anak ni King Saul, ay nag-reign doon sa isang tribe at ito na may kinungkur ni David. At ito nga, siya'y naging victorious. So in 2 Samuel 3, 2-5, sons born to David in Hebron. This is one of 4 lists that serve to demarcate the first 4 sections of 2 Samuel. Here it is, a list of David's sons born to him in Hebron. Mababasa diyan sa chapter 5, 13 to 16. Ito yung mga anak niya. Kung babasahin niyo sa chapter 5, 13 to 16, chapter 8, 15 to 18, at sa chapter 20, 23 to 26, doon nyo malalaman yung anak ni David, mga anak niya doon sa Hebron. David becomes king of Israel. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, 6-5, chapter 5 verse 16, David's ascension to the throne of Israel follows the same pattern as his ascensions to Judah's throne. Then in 2 Samuel chapter 3, 6 to 39, the murder of Abner. So doon po yung record, the murder of Abner. The following Abner's attempt to transfer leadership from Ishbaal to David, Abner is murdered by Joab for killing Joab's brother Asahel in battle. Great care is taken to absolve David of any complicity in the death of Abner, Saul's cousin. In fact, the king protests his innocence and mourns the passing of the famous warrior. In chapter 4, 2 Samuel, verses 1 to 12, once again David is presented as completely innocent of the death of a rival for the throne of Israel. So this time, Ishbaal, Saul's son, upon hearing of Ishbaal's death, David responds in ways similar to his response at hearing of the death of Saul and Abner. Then 2 Samuel 5, 1-5, David anointed king of Israel. So sa chapter 5, makikita nyo yung record. David was anointed as king of Israel. Now, the tribe of Judah had already anointed David as king. So the tribes of Israel commit themselves politically to David by anointing him king of Israel as well. Kaya, si David ang yung kumbaga may nagkaroon ng united. Siya lang ang naghahari sa Judah and then sa Israel, over Israel. So David consolidates his role by making the politically neutral Jerusalem his capital and home, and by defeating the Philistines twice. All because the Lord was with him. Then in chapter 5, 2 Samuel, verses 6 to 12, by conquering the Jebusite city of Jebus, which separated Jerusalem from the northern tribes, changing its name to Jerusalem. Okay, ganun po ang nangyari, pinalitan, conquering the Jebusite city of Jebus. And then nung na-conquer, nung nagiging sa kanila na o na-conquer itong Jebus, pinalitan na niya ng Jerusalem at ito na yung nagiging kapital. Pero noon wala pa yung Jerusalem. Wala pa noon nung hindi pa na-conquer ni King David yung city of Jebus. Pero nung na-conquer niya, ay pinalitan ng Jerusalem. David successfully united. Ito na. United the 12 tribes under his rule. Ayan, yun po ang ginawa niya. Kaya pinag-isa na niya yung 12 tribes under his leadership. Ulitin ko, ginawa niyang headquarter, capital city ang Jerusalem. At dati, hindi naman Jerusalem. Nung na-conquer niya ang city of Jebus, pinalitan niya into Jerusalem and making his capital city. And it was the center of his rulership. Now, in 2 Samuel 5:13 to 16, children born to David in Jerusalem. So, mayroon siyang mga anak na dito sa Jerusalem aside from Hebron. So this is one of 4 lists that serve to demarcate that first 4 sections of 2 Samuel. At doon nyo mababasa yung kanyang mga anak na ipinanganak sa Jerusalem doon sa chapter 3, verses 2 to 5, chapter 8, verse 15 to 18, and chapter 20, 23 to 26. So in chapter 5, 2 Samuel, verses 17 to chapter 8, verse 18, David consolidates the kingdom. So these chapters present David's efforts to consolidate his kingdom, military success, against the surrounding peoples in chapter 5, 17 to 25, chapter 8, verses 1 to 14. Frames David's cultic activity in bringing the ark to Jerusalem and prayer in chapter 6 verses 1 to 23 and chapter 7 verses 18 to 29, which in turn encloses the all-important promise of a Davidic dynasty in chapter 7 verses 1 to 17. In 2 Samuel 5:17 to 25, David defeats the Philistines. So in this stark contrast to Saul, David succeeds in delivering Israel from the oppressions of the Philistines. 2 Samuel 6:1 to 23, David brings the ark to Jerusalem. So David brings the ark of the covenant, the symbol of God's presence, to Jerusalem. So this has the effects of making Jerusalem the holy city. So nung dinala na doon yung ark sa Jerusalem, ano na ang tawag sa Jerusalem? holy city. Nung hindi pa dinala yung Ark of the Covenant doon sa Jerusalem, ang Jerusalem hindi pa tinatawag na holy city. Kaya ngayon, kung tinatawag na holy city, Jerusalem. Yun na yung tawag. Okay? Pero nung wala pa yung Ark of the Covenant, hindi pa yung tinawag na holy city ang Jerusalem. Nung dinala lang doon yung Ark of the Covenant. Bakit? Yung Ark of the Covenant, yun kasi ang symbol of God's presence. Kaya nung dinala ni David doon sa Jerusalem, ang Jerusalem tinatawag ng Holy City. Israel's religious center. Ayan po. Israel's religious center as well as David's political capital. Kaya pag sinabing Jerusalem, Holy City. During that time, yun na yung tawag. Holy City, Jerusalem. City of David, Jerusalem. Ganun na po. Yun na yung sentro. When it comes to worship, Jerusalem. Pupunta sila doon. Ayan. In 2 Samuel chapter 7, 129, God's covenant with David. So in this pivotal text, God promises that David will always have a son on the throne of Judah. God's promise of a Davidic dynasty holds sway over much of the theological message of the Old Testament and becomes the basis for the messianic expectations that arose following the fall of Jerusalem in 586. BC, in 2 Samuel 8, 1-14, David expands the empire. A variety of materials have been gathered together to summarize David's wars, describe the extent of his kingdom, and make the theological point that the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. 2 Samuel chapter 8, 15-18, David's administrators. This is one of 4 lists that serve to demarcate the first 4 sections of 2 Samuel. And then here it is a list of David's administrators. Please read chapter 3 to 5, and then chapter 5, 13 to 16, then chapter 20, 23 to 26. And then chapter 9, 2 Samuel verses 1 to chapter 20 verse 26, David's court. These chapters, 1 Kings chapter 1 and 2, are either an extended narrative describing the struggle for who will succeed David on the throne, or most think now an extended narrative describing the consequences of David's sin with Bathsheba. 2 Samuel chapter 9, 1-13, David's covenant loyalty to Jonathan. In his covenant with Jonathan, David had promised to show loyalty to Jonathan's family. Recorded in 1 Samuel chapter 18 verses 1-4 and chapter 20 verses 14-17. So in this story, David shows kindness to Jonathan's son Mephibosheth. In 2 Samuel 10, 1 to chapter 12 verse 31, war with the Ammonites and the Arameans. David's wars with the Ammonites and the Arameans provide the context for his adulterous affair with Bathsheba and his arranged murder of her husband Uriah the Hittite. David's sin will have serious repercussions for the remainder of the book. 2 Samuel 13, 1-14, 14, chapter 14, 33, like father, like son. So 3 stories form a sordid tale of rape, murder, reconciliation. Just as David's sexual misappropriations of Bathsheba had ended in the murder of Uriah, And David's sons mirror his behavior in Amnon's rape of Tamar and Absalom's murder of Amnon. And in 2 Samuel 15:1 to chapter 19:43, Absalom rebels against David. Absalom impatience to become king himself. Nandun pa nga yung si David, yung kanyang ama, gusto na niyang palitan. Parang atat na siyang palitan. Hindi yan. Hindi yan ang proseso para maging hari. Pero itong si Absalom, gustong-gusto na niya. Nag-isip siya ng masama sa kanyang ama na si David. Gusto na niyang palitan. So God support and foments rebellion against his father, David, forcing him to flee Jerusalem. David is emotionally torn between preserving his throne and preserving the life of his rebellious son. How about in 2 Samuel 20, verses 1 to 22, Sheba rebels against David. Civil war again breaks out between Israel and Judah, this time under Sheba's rebellion. David's quick response preserved the unity of the nation. As before, Joab is blamed for the bloodshed. Then 2 Samuel 20, 23 to 26, David's administrators. This is one of 4 lists that serve to demarcate the first 4 sections of 2 Samuel. Epilogue 2 Samuel 21, 1-24, chapter 24-25, the final 4 chapters of 2 Samuel comprise an epilogue or appendix that gathers together several traditions, arranging them in a concentric fashion. A narrative of national disaster, then tales of David's warriors, and a poem, tales of David's warriors and narrative of national disaster. Then sa 2 Samuel 21, 1-14, a narrative of national disaster. Sa Gibeonite vengeance for Saul's attempt to exterminate them in violation of a long-standing promise is matched by the compassionate concern for the dead shown by Saul's concubine and by David himself. In 2 Samuel 21, 15-22, David's warriors, these 4 brief accounts of single combats are similar to that between David's and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, together with 2 Samuel 23, 8-39, a second grouping concerning David's warriors. They frame 2 poetic pieces, David's hymn and David's last words. Then 2 Samuel 22, 1-51, David's song of praise. In this magnificent hymn, which also appears as Psalm 18, David reflects upon his reign as king and God's deliverance. David expresses thanks to God for many acts of deliverance by singing God's praise. 2 Samuel 23, 1-7, David's last words, functioning together with David's song of praise in chapter 22, as a counterpoint to the song of Hannah, which opened the books of Samuel. David's last words affirm that God will remain faithful to the everlasting covenant between God and the house of David. Then 2 Samuel 23, 8-39, David's warriors. These 4 brief accounts of single combats are similar, so that between David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17, together with in chapter 21, 15-22, they frame 2 poetic pieces, David's song of praise. Then 2 Samuel 24, 1-25, David's census, a terrible plague seen as God's judgment upon David for taking a census of the people, is burned after David, following the advice of a prophet, acquires some land in Jerusalem, builds an altar, and sacrifices to the Lord. So how many children did King David have? David had 8 named wives, others unnamed, and unknown number of concubines. From these unions, the Bible names 19 sons and 1 daughter, Tamar, in 1 Chronicles 3:1-9. If we count the son who died in infancy after having been conceived through David's adulterous relationship with Bathsheba, in 2 Samuel 12:16-23. And David had at least 21 children by his wives plus an unknown number by his many concubines. So these are the name, children plus a little information about each of them. Amnon, David's firstborn, by his wife Ahinoam, was a man of low character and driven by lust. He became obsessed with his half-sister Tamar, daughter of Maacah, and lured her to his room on false pretenses so he could rape her. He was later murdered in revenge by Tamar's full brother Absalom in 2 Samuel 13. Then Daniel. So mayroon din siyang anak na ang pangalan Daniel. So nothing is known of David's second son born to his wife Abigail. And then pangatlo, Absalom, third in line. Absalom is one of David's most notorious sons. Itong si Absalom. A son of David's wife Maacah, Absalom was hot-tempered and power-hungry. He planned out the murder of his half-brother Amnon to avenge the rape of his sister, and then he plotted to steal his father's throne. He drew a following in Jerusalem, and David was forced to flee the city to help complete his coup. Absalom had sex with David's concubines in view of everyone. He died in battle when Joab, commander of David's army, killed him in 2 Samuel 13-19. Number 4, na anak ni David, Adonijah, David's fourth son by his wife Haggith, was handsome and undisciplined. In 1 Kings chapter 1 verse 6, he is known for a failed attempt to become king of Israel after his father died. In 1 Kings 1:9, so Adonijah was eventually executed by his half-brother Solomon, the rightful king, for continued insurrections and attempts to steal the throne in 1 Kings chapter 2, 23-25. Next, number 5, son of David, Shephatiah. So nothing is known of David's fifth son, born to his wife Abital. Then number 6, Ithream. Nothing is known of his son by David's wife Eglah. And then Shimea or Shammua, a son of Bathsheba, David's seventh son, was born in Jerusalem, but nothing else is known about him. Then number 8, Shobab, another son of Bathsheba, nothing else is known about him. So kumbaga walang record. Yung iba may background, yung iba wala. Then Nathan, number 9, na anak ni David, si Nathan, David's eighth son, was also Bathsheba's, and nothing else is known of him. We can surmise that Nathan was named after the prophet Nathan, who had a long-term association with David. So yung anak niyang si Nathan ipinangalan doon sa propeta na si Nathan na matagal niyang kasama. And then ang pang-sampo na anak ni David si Solomon, also called Jedidiah. David's most famous son was also by Bathsheba. God chose Solomon to become the next king of Israel. So, ang daming anak ni David at itong pangsampo si King Solomon yung pumalit sa kanyang trono. God chose Solomon to become the next king of Israel. God offered to grant Solomon anything he asked for. Solomon asked for wisdom to rule the people well. Ayan, in 1 Kings chapter 3, 4 to 15. God was so pleased with Solomon's request that he granted the wisdom and also gave him and much wealth and a long life. Solomon was the author of most of the Proverbs, the Song of Solomon, and the book of Ecclesiastes. David's remaining children were born in Jerusalem but we don't know much else about them. So, wala nang background pero ito, si Ibhar, Elishama, Eliphelet, Noga, Nepeg, Japeia, and then Elishama, Eliada, and then Eliphelet. Then 20, Tamar. We do not know Tamar's positions in the birth order, but Jano, she was the daughter of Maacah. We are told of her raped at the hands of her half-brother Amnon, and that afterward she lived in isolation at her brother Absalom's house in 2 Samuel 13 verse 20. Then David had a son named Jeremoth, who is mentioned in 2 Chronicles 11:18. It's not clear whether he is one of the sons mentioned above, using another name, or if he was one of David's sons by a concubine. So in 2 Chronicles 3:9, it's likely that David had many more sons and daughters na hindi lang recorded. He had more wives and concubines than the ones who are identified. So yung mga na-identified, yun yung naka-record lang doon sa kanyang mga asawa, pero doon sa mga concubines ay wala. Ang dami niyang anak itong si David. So the book of 2 Samuel can be divided into two main sections: David's triumphs in chapters 1 to 10 and David's troubles in chapters 11 to 20. Then the last part of the book, chapters 21 to 24, is a chronological appendix which contains further details of David's reign. So the book begins with David receiving news of the death of Saul and his sons. He proclaims a time of mourning. Soon afterward, David is crowned king over Judah, while Ishbosheth, one of Saul's surviving sons, is crowned king over Israel in chapter 2. A civil war follows, but Ishbosheth is murdered, and the Israelites ask David to reign over them as well in chapters 4 to 5. David moves the country's capital from Hebron to Jerusalem, and later moves the Ark of the Covenant, chapters 5 to 6. So David's plan to build a temple in Jerusalem is vetoed by God, who then promises David the following things. Number 1, David would have a son to rule after him. Number 2, David's son would build the temple. And number 3, the throne occupied by David's lineage would be established forever. Number 4, God would never take his mercy from David's house. 2 Samuel 7:4 to 16. So David leads Israel to victory over many of the enemy nations which surrounded them. He also shows kindness to the family of Jonathan by taking in Mephibosheth, Jonathan's crippled son, in chapters 8 to 10. Then David falls. he lusts for a beautiful woman named Bathsheba, commits adultery with her, and then has her husband murdered in chapter 11. And when Nathan, the prophet, confronts David with his sin, David confesses, and God graciously forgives. However, the Lord tells David that trouble would arise from within his own household. So, ganun po na nangyari yung sinabi ni Propeta Jonathan na nagkaroon ng problem doon sa kanyang family bilang consequences sa kanyang ginawa. Trouble does come when David's firstborn son Amnon rapes his half-sister Tamar. Retaliations, Tamar's brother Absalom kills Amnon. Absalom then flees Jerusalem rather than face his father's anger. And then later, Absalom leads a revolt against David, and some of David's former associates join the rebellion in chapters 15-16. So David is forced out of Jerusalem. Absalom sets himself as king for a short time. So the usurper is overthrown, however, against David's wishes is killed. David mourns his fallen son. So nagkaroon ng talagang consequences doon sa ginawa ni David at apektado yung bayang Israel. Siyempre, doon sa kanyang ginawa. So, here David learns of Saul and Jonathan's death in chapter 1 to 4. David hears the news in Ziklag. So, now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David had returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had stayed 2 days in Ziklag. On the 3rd day, behold, it happened that a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dust on his head. So ito naman po yung plano na pagpatay kay David actually, pero si King Saul hindi po niya nagawa yon. So mayroon po mga ganon before na naging king si King David ay ang unang naghari sa Israel ay si King Saul. So yun pong napag-usapan natin sa 1 Samuel. Okay? So actually ito yung record ng 2 Samuel. Kung gusto nyong aralin pa, basahin nyo ang Book of 2 Samuel. Marami pa kayong matutunan doon regarding sa leadership ni King David.